Players love nothing more than figuring out how to cut through the middle and cheese their way past a boss, all the more so if it's a tricky one. And that's especially true when it's the last hurdle in the game, the very final boss. While each of these bosses was obviously designed to be your final pinnacle of conflict that was going to swallow up a bunch of your energy and time and demand mastery of the combat from you, wouldn't it be cool to just hit them once and then kick back and enjoy the ending? I'm Jess from WhatCulture, and here are 9 secret ways to defeat final bosses in one hit. Number 9, use the Boomerang on Deathel, The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening. In the original release of The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening, you can save yourself a boatload of hassle against the nightmare's final boss form Deathel by just lobbing your boomerang at it. For a brief window of time, Deathel's eye will open, during which, if you're quick, you can just lob your boomerang at it and then boom, done. It's all over. Sucks to be Deathel. Anticlimactic though it might be, it certainly beats taking Deathel down the hard way and firing more than a dozen arrows into its eye before claiming your victory. But because Nintendo are no fun, or maybe they realized this cheese method was just too well known nowadays, they frustratingly removed it from 2019's remake for Nintendo Switch. Anyone who strolled into that final battle after the fact, thinking they could just take down his final form in one hit, was unfortunately disappointed. Number 8, the one-shot trick against Ender Dragon, Minecraft. Those who reach the end of Minecraft, literally the final area in the game is called the end, will have to face off against the Ender Dragon, the largest mob in the entire game who won't go down lightly. But last year, an enterprising speedrunner called Circuit Store figured out a way of ending the flying menace with just a single arrow. The key here is that in Minecraft, the damage dealt by an arrow is determined by its velocity, so it's possible to take advantage of that and deliver colossal damage to the Ender Dragon's hitbox, enough to kill it in a single hit even. The basics of the method: you need to throw an ender pearl which allow you to teleport to the top of one of the towers, then throw a second ender pearl across the island just before the teleport kicks in. Once you're teleported to the top of the tower, you throw another ender pearl at the ender dragon and then draw your bow. As you're teleported to the dragon's core, fire your arrow into the hitbox, and because the dragon's defensive knockback effect will increase the arrow's velocity and in turn its damage, it'll die in one shot. And best of all, that ender pearl you threw across the island will now land, teleporting you to the ground in one piece. Now, as you probably guessed, this is far from an easy sequence of moves to pull off, but practice makes perfect, and those who persevere can take the ender dragon out with a mere arrow. Number 7, drag Sebastiano Di Ravello's chopper straight to hell, Just Cause 3. Just Cause 3's final clash sees you take on tyrannical dictator General Sebastiano Di Ravello inside an active volcano. To fight you mano a mano though, he hangs out inside his well-armed chopper, forcing you to slog through 10 minutes of firing away at this tediously spongy vessel until its life bar is finally depleted. Or, in step with the game's own anarchic spirit, you can cut through all that nonsense and end the battle with a single move. When the battle starts, instead of wailing away on the helicopter, simply tether it to the ground with your grappling hook. Although that sounds like it shouldn't work, it actually does. Once you got the grapple working, it'll pull the chopper out of the sky, it'll hit the ground, and swiftly explode, ending your confrontation and your villain quite quickly. It's certainly preferable to what's otherwise a rather boring and frustrating boss battle, and given the grappling hook is such a major part of the game, Square Enix certainly can't argue that folks are playing it as intended. Number 6, PvE faith builds to defeat Radagon and Elden Beast, Elden Ring. It was just a matter of time before an Elden Ring player figured out how to one-shot the 2-part final boss fight against Radagon and the Elden Beast, and within a few months of the game's release, YouTuber Your Average Gamer had it on lock. The YouTuber, who specializes in creating unconventional yet enormously powerful builds, made a faith-based build capable of killing Radagon and the Elden Beast with just a single hit, each on New Game Plus 7, the game's hardest difficulty. Your Average Gamer called this build the ultimate PvE build, and you can absolutely see why. If you do want to try it for yourself, he's even created some instructions on his channel. Once the build is made, the process of one-shotting these bosses involves casting numerous incantations and buffs, after which casting Ancient Dragon's Lightning Strike will positively obliterate any story buffs the game has to offer. The YouTuber claims they spent roughly 20 hours tinkering around with various builds to find one that worked best, and given the jaw-dropping end result, it was certainly worth the time investment, so bravo. Number 5, mow the creator down with a bugged saw, the Final Fantasy legend. Square Enix's classic The Final Fantasy Legend ends with players having to take on a boss known as the Creator. Your battle with the villainous mastermind can be a pain in the ass if you try to do it the honest way, so you might be compelled to just deploy the hilarious saw bug instead. Basically, the saw was designed to insta-kill enemies if their defense was greater than the player's strength, making it useful against regular foes and basically useless against powerful bosses. However, somebody screwed up during development, and instead, this formula got flipped, meaning the saw is useless against regular enemies, but against bosses, oh, this thing's great. This is especially true of the Creator, as all you need to do is attack them with the saw once and they'll perish, breaking into pieces without your party breaking a damn sweat. For anyone feeling categorically outmatched, it sure was a welcome lifeline to see the game through to the very end. Number 4, let Riva shoot Lucien, Fable 2. Much as fans understandably complain about Fable 2's final boss battle against Lord Lucien being an outrageous anti-climax, there's actually not one, but 2 ways you can end him in a single hit. This can only scarcely be called a boss fight really, as it's largely comprised of Lucien doing a Bond villain monologue before you're prompted to use your music box to interrupt his ritual. Doing so leaves him exposed to you, at which time you can just pull out your gun and boom, he's dead. The end. But there's another secret way to kill Lucien, and one which allows another character to score the winning strike. After using the magic box, you're free to simply listen to Lucien angrily blather on for a while, and if you wait long enough, Riva will pull out his own gun and shoot Lucien dead on the spot, before making a crack about how you took too long to finish the job. While on the one hand, you could add this to Peter Molyneux's list of overpromising and under-delivering as a developer, it's also just a damn hilarious way of ending the fight, so we gotta give credit. Number 3, use a warp staff to kill Medius, Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon. Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon's final boss is Medius, aka the titular Shadow Dragon. And tricky though he might look, he doesn't have to be, with a little thoughtful chicanery. Simply, you just need to make sure to use a warp staff to warp a strong party member to Medius's position and then have them deliver a devastating critical attack. A common tactic is to warp Tiki over to him and then use Divine Stone, which turns her into a massive powerful dragon. This will then allow her to rinse all of Medius's HP in a single hit under the right circumstances. The outcome will certainly depend on the strength of your build and a little luck regarding critical hits, but it's nothing if not a novel way to punk the big bad in basically record time. Is it cheesy? Of course it is, but it's so delightfully simple it becomes irresistible to not try at least once. Number 2, use Zanmato on Braska's final Aeon, Final Fantasy X. Final Fantasy X's final boss, excluding Yu Yevon, who you can't lose against, is Braska's final Aeon, who, while far from the toughest boss in the game, can certainly put up one hell of a fight against the ill-prepared. But you can turn the boss into a mere triviality if you bust out the toughest attack in the game, Yojimbo Zanmato, which can one-shot pretty much anything the game has to offer, and that includes bosses. Now, technically speaking, because Braska's final Aeon is comprised of 2 stages, you actually need to use Zanmato twice in order to destroy each form. Or if you're not too confident in your Jimbo coming through for you each time, you're better off getting to the 2nd stage, then executing Zanmato once. Either way, Zanmato can turn a really tricky boss battle into a total walkover as long as you're prepared. So if you want to see a boss go down in 2 minutes flat, this is the way to do it. Number 1, fight Incubus with no ammo, Silent Hill. In the case of Silent Hill's final boss Incubus, you don't even really need to land a hit on it. You just need to do one action which will cause the creature to react as though it's been mortally wounded. Before you enter the final room to fight Incubus, firstly ensure all your weapons have been emptied of their ammo. Then when the boss fight properly begins, start trying to fire all your guns into the air to demonstrate that they're empty. This will swiftly trigger Incubus's death and the game's ending. Though it was initially assumed that this was a mere glitch accidentally included in the game by Konami, it's since been suggested this was actually a failsafe to ensure that ammo-scarce players could still beat the game without having to start all over again. Given that the same trick is repeated in Silent Hill 2, it's safe to assume it wasn't a bug, or in the very least, Konami was smart enough to run with it and pretend it was intentional for the sequel. Considering that Silent Hill on the whole is a relatively unforgiving experience, this unexpected bout of generosity at the very final hurdle was a really welcome one.